Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our 2021 Open Banking and Digital Financial Services Environment FBAA eSummit series here in Queensland for session 2. I'm Christine Green, the Queensland State President for the FBAA, and I will be your MC for today. So let's get today's session underway. Firstly, there is 1.5 CPD hours allocated to each eSummit Session 2 here in Queensland. You'll receive an email with the CPD code and survey following, so stay tuned throughout the whole webinar. Make sure that you get the attendance marked and you'll receive this email. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their support. We know that these events simply don't take place without the support of our sponsors. It's been a tough few years for everyone, and yet they still continue to work closely to ensure we can still provide you with the education and assistance you need during this time. So please don't hesitate to get in contact with them, as they're always here to support you. You'll get their contact details in the follow-up email just after today's session. FBAA members, don't forget that you'll receive 10% off your membership every time you refer a new member who joins the FBAA. And we so appreciate your support and your referrals as well. Make sure you download our FBAA app to easily access information, updates, and upcoming webinars to register for this event. FBAA members, please continue to access the member area of our FBAA website by logging in to receive resources and tools to assist you. It has been revamped, so please make sure that you do this so you'll get access to the latest website as well. FBAA Broker Support Program is still available for anyone to access via the website. We've added BID, Digital Educational Knowledge Testing course information for those who still wish to complete it, and continue to update this section with many measures to assist you. Now, the agenda for today's session was on the registration setup to view back as a handout in the Zoom chat box. So to commence today's session, we'll be hearing about embracing digital teams, building capacity, and setting your business up to scale with affordable staff. So I'd like to welcome Caitlin Stewart, who will take us through the next segment. Thank you, Caitlin, over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Christine. Good morning, everybody. I hope we're all doing well this fine Wednesday morning. I love you guys so much. I've actually joined you on my day off for my birthday. So there you go. Happy to be here though. So my name is Caitlin Stewart, and I am the Financial Services BDM here at Affordable Staff. And who are Affordable Staff? Well, we help brokers get their life back with the use of virtual assistants and digital teams. Today, I'd like to have a talk about what I'm currently seeing, or what I'm currently hearing, from many of my broker clients. A lot of people are working over 10 hours each day in order to manage the absolute onslaught of applications that have recently started to come through. A lot of the time as well, weekends are spent on the business, not on the personal life. A lot of unhappy spouses I'm hearing at the moment. A lot of important admin and compliance is being pushed back until the last minute, and many brokers at the moment I'm hearing are limited in being able to take on new clients or referral partners because they're just simply at capacity. As a result, existing clients are also being underserviced and they're moving their business away. I'm hearing of a lot of pullbacks, unfortunately. Capacity for most is maxed out, stagnating growth. And with the new financial year on the horizon, I'm sure many are thinking about business planning for the next year, hoping to increase their book sizes or at least increase their settlements. However, just because of general uncertainty, a lot of people are actually unsure if they can afford to hire permanent staff and the additional costs that come along with it. A lot of ways in order to sit down and think about where to next. Well, the first thing you need to think about is understanding your capacity. So in order to grow your book sustainably, you need to understand your personal capacity. How much time are you spending on each task? What could you easily delegate down? Are you spending time doing $1 tasks, or are you actually spending time doing tasks that are making you money or return on investment activities? Just a quick shout out to the team at 10X Group. They've got a really fantastic sustainable capacity calculator. So you can go to that website, plug in the time spent on each task, and figure out exactly how many clients you can be meeting with each week while still working within the hours that you want to. If you're still not achieving that, you're not getting around to seeing as many clients as you would like, then it's time to make a plan. Have a look at bringing on some capacity through the use of potentially a digital team. So this is where affordable staff comes in to help. So a virtual assistant can help handle your low value, time consuming tasks so that you can focus on working on your business instead of just in your business. So we anticipate with the use of a virtual assistant, you could save anywhere from 10 to 20 hours per deal on your admin by delegating to that resource located in our office in the Philippines. So that could then allow you or your local team members, depending on if you're a solo operator or maybe have onshore staff as well, to focus on those higher return on investment activities, you know, seeing more clients, meeting more referral partners, getting more business through the door. We hope that with the use of a VA that you'll be able to build more individual capacity for both your business and your personal life so you can have your weekends back. And the way that we work is we are a full-time dedicated support. We provide you with another team member. They just sit in a different office. Some tasks that we often see many of our broker clients delegating to a VA are listed here. So a lot of this does involve the loan processing side of things, you know, apply online, chasing up client documents, ordering bells, pricing, sitting on hold to the banks. I saw yesterday 6 hours. I think that's a record. I certainly hope that you're not currently sitting on hold to the banks for that long, but if you are, maybe think about delegating that to a VA. Just a couple of case studies to round out this, just to show you the benefits and where some of our clients have seen some great wins recently. So first broker Kim was averaging $1.5 million a month in settlements, operating as a solo broker. And prior to working with us, she was turning away customers, so she wasn't able to take on any new clients. She hired a virtual assistant through us in November of 2020, and very quickly after that time, within 2 months, her settled volumes had actually increased to an average of $4 million, and Kim was enjoying more time with new clients and referral partners. In the last couple of months, we had a chat yesterday, she's actually settled over $6 million on average, and she's now looking to also bring on another team member in order to assist with that increased business. Another case study, principal broker Peter. He was averaging $3 million a month in settlements, operating with one full-time in-house assistant and also one new-to-industry broker. With the new-to-industry broker, he recognised that he needed to get some additional support to help the team. So he hired a virtual assistant through Affordable Staff in January of this year, and volumes have more than doubled. We would hope to see that, but they're also being able to take on far more applications than they would have without the VA. Settlements now averaging $8 million per month. Somewhere which is a really great win, obviously, for the settlements, but also for capacity and personal life. Peter has actually been able to drop down to 4 days a week, whilst the business is still ticking along as it should with these increased settlement volumes. To round out, if you'd like to have a chat to me about hiring a full-time staff member at less than half the price, please get in touch. You can book a meeting with me directly into my calendar, or you can feel free to give me a call or send me an email. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Caitlin. And on behalf of the FBAA and every member that's here today, happy birthday. And thank you so much for being here. And you know, who doesn't want a virtual assistant? I think it's fantastic, a great opportunity. So thank you so much, Caitlin. Go and have that birthday cake and champagne and have a wonderful, wonderful day. So thank you. Now we're going to move through to our lender panel, and I'd like to welcome Bluestone, Speedy Finance Trail, Book Loans and Prosper. And I'm actually going to hand over now to the lovely Leah Renwick, who will be emceeing this panel. Thank you. Over to you, Leah.
Thanks, Christine. And Miss Caitlin, I don't recommend drinking champagne probably this early in the morning. Nicolette did tell us yesterday that we should try and refrain from how much we do drink. So maybe a glass of champagne and a glass of water, something along those lines might help you out there. But a very big, as Christine said, a very big happy birthday from all of us up here at the National Office of the FBAA as well. So guys, welcome back this morning. I did threaten you all that I was going to wear my New South Wales jersey, and I am wearing it. Yes, I know I'm on a Queensland webinar, but I got to say it, go the Blues for this weekend. And look, I may get beaten down by all of you in the chat box, and that's okay. A couple of things this morning. If you don't have your cameras on, can you please turn them on for us? We'd love to see your smiling faces. And also, if you do have any questions throughout today's session, especially on the panel session this morning, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll read them out as we go. So guys, welcome to this morning's panel. You all look so happy for a hump day. We're going to kick things off, go straight into it today. And I'm going to start a question, it's a round question for all of you. So what is it about your product that sets you apart from other lenders? And what I'll do is, Mr. Winters, I will actually start with you this morning.
Yeah, so that's a pretty simple one for Prosper. Since Prosper started, we had like a term loan or an SBL, but the product that sets us apart at the moment is our line of credit. So true line of credit, you can give a small business a 100 grand limit. They can take the money as they need it. They can pay it back. They can redraw back to that 100 grand limit as much as they like. So it doesn't amortize over the life of the loan. So that's probably, in a very, very quick answer, which I know you'll appreciate, Leah, is what sets us apart.
Everybody thinks I'm such a bully when it comes to the answer of these questions and being done in 30 seconds, guys. Habib, good morning. It's the first time, Andrew, that we've had you on with us for one of these sessions, so welcome.
Unfortunately, you don't have Andrew.
Hello, Linda.
This is really confusing because I've got Andrew's name that's come up on both screens this morning. So I'm going to let you both answer, and this is going to be a bit technical today, so I'm going to let you both answer in case one does miss a valid point. What is it that sets your product apart from other lenders in that space?
Do you want me to go, Linda?
Yeah, I'll step out because I thought you were ill. That's why I was.
No, all good, all good. Look, to be honest, what sets us apart from other lenders in the market at the moment, probably our biggest thing is we don't charge mortgage insurance or a risk fee for prime deals over 80%. And up to 90. So we can do a 90% LVR circa Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and on the outer skirts, 85 without charging an LMI premium. And that's really what is setting us apart at the moment from other lenders, as well as, and we're probably going to touch on this a little bit later, but you know, a 24-hour SLA, we've got no credit scoring and no DTI in our applications as well. So for speed and price, it's is what's setting us apart at the moment.
Brilliant. And Coops, I'm going to head down to you from Speedy Finance's point of view. What sets you apart from other lenders in your space?
Yeah, so with Speedy, what sets us apart from other SME lenders, we're a short-term commercial lender using property as security. So with us, we're not looking for turnover, time in business, things like that. We're just looking for the loan purpose and the exit strategy, and that's the main thing that sets us apart, essentially. Yeah.
Perfect. And Surinder, we know that you've got a very special product for us down with Trailbook Loans, but what separates your particular product from Trailbook Loans from the other companies that are offering it at the moment?
The biggest one is that we're really simplistic to use. So we don't do valuations or get into LVRs at all. We've just got a straight, simple metric. Whatever the annual trail is, we'll lend 1.5 times that amount. So, there's no $3,000, $4,000 up front for a valuation to then have an argument about what an LVR is. It's just simple. You've got 100 grand a year in trail, max loans 150, done.
Absolutely love it. So guys, look, we've heard a very brief session. What I'm going to do is go straight into the nuts and bolts of where we sit in the industry and what your fantastic products can do with a couple of questions for you and a couple of out there scenarios, so to speak. So guys, if I was a startup company that had been trading for 6 months, but I have a high income of over $100,000 already, what would the maximum amount I could borrow through your company be, and what documents would you require for me to be able to do that? And I'm going to start with Simon because you're at the top of my screen.
Beautiful. So again, so for a startup company for 6 months, we can lend to them. It's risky, but we still do it. How we mitigate that risk is our credit policy limits the maximum loan that we provide to $25,000. We do go by exception up to 50 or even 100 if there is prior industry experience. So if a company, if they've got a new startup, but they've got experience in the same industry and they've just moved to a new company, we do take that into consideration. So when it comes to the maximum amount, obviously they're turning over 100. We're sort of looking at that anyway in terms of their turnover would support it. It's more of a policy restriction for us.
Perfect. And Habib, for your side of things, would you have a look at lending to somebody that's running a startup company or been trading for 6 months and they have a high income already at 100,000? Would you look at lending to them, or what would be the maximum amount that they could borrow? And would there be any specific documents you'd require?
Yeah, look, to be honest, at 6 months, that'd probably rule us out. Our short-term self-employed policy for home loans really kicks off at about 12. So once we've got a 12-month ABN, the good thing with Bluestone is there's a couple of different options as far as documentation that we require. We've got some alt-doc products where we can look at the last 2 quarters of BAS or just an accountant's and customer declaration on income. We've just released that product a couple of weeks ago. Otherwise, we can do a 1-year financial product as well in our near prime space. So I guess if you've got something that's 12 months ABN, you don't quite have financials or things like that, reach out to your Bluestone BDM and we steer you in the right direction.
Perfect. That's excellent. Cooper, down there at Speedy, is that the type of scenario that Speedy would have a look at?
Yeah, so that's definitely a speedy scenario. So again, like I said, we're not looking at time in business or turnover or anything like that. The main 3 things, again, what we're looking for is that they fit within the LBR guideline and that they have a strong loan purpose and exit strategy on how they plan on paying the loan back. With the actual documentation wise, so for us, we're just looking at the rates notice, mortgage statement, and having the application form back. So quick and easy on that side.
Perfect. And Surinder, I'm going to throw it over to you, but I'm going to twist this one a little bit. Would Trailbook Loans have a look at lending to a broker that's been in business for 6 months against any trail that they may have, or they may have purchased a book before they've come over into the industry full time? Would Trailbook Loans have a look at lending against that book for them in that front 6 months?
Generally not. So credit policy states that we need 2 years self-employed, but the biggest thing that we're looking for is experience. So, you know, I'll use an example in the financial planning space because it happens more than in the broking space, where a planner has been an employee in a business for 5 years and they've just gone out on their own with the same business being self-employed. We'll look at that without any problem because they've got that industry experience, as Simon was saying earlier on. A brand new to industry 6 months broker, no, couldn't do that.
Perfect. So guys, I want to go to the next question I've got for you now. Bill Smith, because Bill comes up a lot in finance, especially when you're doing training. Bill Smith has managed a restaurant for over 15 years and he's decided to go out on his own and buy his own restaurant. He needs finance for fixtures and fittings. Is this something that you can have a look at? And is there any other finance you could offer him if you couldn't look at finance specifically for fixtures and fittings? Cooper, I'm actually going to start with you down at Speedy.
Yeah, so again, like I said, we don't have a minimum time in business. We do a lot of, startup business purchases as well. Having the history in the industry is definitely a big plus. But yeah, for something like this, we typically look at doing a interest-only bridge for 12 months until he's got the business that he started up on his own and can refinance into a traditional facility. But definitely a speedy deal, that one.
Perfect. And Simon up at Prosper, is it a deal that you guys would have a look at? And if not,
you just cut out. Have you got me okay?
Yep, I've got you okay.
So it's a no from us, purely because managing a restaurant doesn't equate to owning a restaurant. So any PAYG income is disregarded. So the reality of this one is it's a no, unless they've got another business that we're not aware of. So we'll rule us out for this one.
Perfect. And Mr. Habib, over at Bluestone side of things, is fixtures and fittings something you guys can do? If not, is there another type of product that Bluestone could potentially offer Bill Smith?
Look, we can do cash out for business purpose on, like, for example, a refi, if you obviously, residential security required, etc. So, if the customer's got, a low enough LVR, we can do cash out for business purpose. If he was to start a new venture or something like that, we can have a look at that. So not a problem.
Perfect. And that's great, guys. I mean, I think you're all offering some really good alternatives in that space. As to what people can actually do, especially in the SME market. Guys, I'm going to go to my mate, Fred Flintstone. He's a good bloke, Fred Flintstone. He needs finance for stock that he needs to have next week, but some of his accounts for his company are due to pay him and some are also running late. Would you still look at financing him? And if so, on what terms? Mr. Winters, I will start with you.
Yeah, classic Prosper customer. Timing is everything, particularly at this time of year. So legitimately, if you brought Fred Flintstone to us today, we would have the money in his account tonight. So all we're looking at is his turnover for his last 6 months bank statement. And we would absolutely give him money for stock because there's no security and Prosper does not take security. So that's perfect for us.
Perfect. And Cooper, down to you at Speedy.
Yeah, for Speedy, like I said, we do use property security. So if he did have property, we could definitely do a bridge for him to purchase the stock. So yeah.
Perfect. And Mr. Habib up there at Bluestone.
Yeah, it does sound like a very Prosper type deal, Simon. Yeah, so yeah, for us again, business purpose with Rosie Security, fine, but otherwise, yeah,
Not a
it wouldn't be
problem
in
at
the
all.
account the same day, that's for sure.
Well, you know, look, that would almost be a miracle on the mortgage side of things if we could turn and burn a deal in a day. That would almost be unheard of, unless we took. Yeah, look, if we could take lending back 20 years ago, mate, I'm sure we could turn a deal same day and have a check in their bank account. But that's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away when Avco was still around. So, guys, being that we're almost now at the end of financial year, it's a question. It's a very quick yes or no. Will your companies lend for ATO debt? Simon Winters, over to you.
It's a quick yes. We do have common sense restrictions. If your ATO debt exceeds 150% of your monthly turnover, you are too big a risk for us because we don't think you'll ever trade out of that position. But as a general rule, yes, we will lend for ATO debt. Perfect.
Mr. Habib?
Absolutely, we can refinance ATO debt, not a problem.
Brilliant. Coops?
Yep, that's a yes for Speedy as well, yep.
And Surinder, from Trailbook Loan side of things, can they borrow against their trail for an ATO debt?
Absolutely. Got no issue with what the purpose is, provided it's business use.
Fantastic, and we like that. Surinder, I'm going to stay with you for a minute. And it's a question for the audience because I think a lot of people are unsure why people would borrow against their trail book. So what types of purposes do people come to you for that they want to borrow against their trail book?
Yeah, so Lee, the biggest ones that we see are tax debt. I mean, all brokers are small businesses in their own right. So, you know, that's a given. Tax debt acquisition is a big one. Brokers buying a business. Working capital, looking to expand, put on staff, marketing. So, you know, a long time ago, it used to be the fact that if you needed money to do something for expansion or to pay out a debt or whatever, you needed to sell your trail book. And this concept that you can lend against it now is gaining a lot of traction because, you know, brokers are small businesses building an asset in their own right. So, you know, to leverage against that income stream makes sense. So, yeah.
Perfect. And Surinder, I just want to hold on to another question for you at the moment. How long would the whole process take if somebody wanted to borrow against their trail book?
Provided as soon as we get all of the information, we're probably 3 to 4 weeks beginning to end. The biggest hold up is getting all that information up front, you know, the 12 months RCTIs and the like. But as soon as we get that, we're sort of 3 to 4 weeks beginning to end.
Brilliant. So guys, back on the rest of the panel at the moment, I'm going to do a bit of a quick fire round that's going on here at the moment. It's going to be 4 questions, very simple. It's okay because there's nothing freaky going on here. Simon, I'm not going to ask you what position you came in your supercar racing last year. This is fine. So guys, is there anyone on this current panel, and it's a raise of the hand and then I'll get you to explain it, that can lend for the following? And if so, can you let us know the maximum LVR and loan amounts? So is there anyone on the current panel that can do a hobby farm? Cooper, come on down. I'll start with you. You were first with the hand up. Let us know about your maximum LVR and also your loan amount for that.
Yeah, so with Speedy, as a base LVR for a hobby farm, depending how rural it is about 50%. But the closer it gets to kind of a metro area, the higher we can come up with the LVR. But as long as, again, they have a loan purpose and exit strategy for the funds being used, we can definitely use that as security. Perfect.
Mr. Winters up at Prosper.
We're not going to be better than Speedy for this one, but if they don't have equity, then we'll look at the income coming through the hobby farm and lend against that.
Perfect. And Andrew Habib, over to you at Bluestone.
We wouldn't lend against the hobby farm.
Perfect. Like that. We love a quick round. Would anybody lend for an income producing farm? Oh, Cooper's got his hand up again in 30 seconds.
Same again for Speedy as previous for the hobby farm.
Perfect. And I'm looking at the other two and it's kind of, yeah, there's a no going on there. And Airbnb, because that seems to be the coolest thing that people are doing at the moment. And Cooper's taken it again. So we've got 3 from Cooper at the moment.
Yeah, again, because they're earning income from the Airbnb and it's classed as an investment, we'd definitely look at lending against it.
Yep. And up to you, Mr. Habib at Bluestone. Is an Airbnb something that Bluestone would look at as an out of the box, or is it a definite no?
No, we could have a look at the income produced from an Airbnb. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a normal residential security property. So if you've got one and you're using it as Airbnb instead of a permanent rental, we can have a look at that income. We shade it by 50%, but absolutely. So bank statements would suffice to show the income being produced by the Airbnb, and then, yeah, we'd use 50% of that income. So.
And guys, I'm going to throw it and stretch that one a bit further. If the Airbnb had only been purchased, let's say 6 months ago, so that income's only been coming in for that 6 months, would we be able to still have a look at using the income from that property?
Yeah, we would. Yeah,
we would. Coops, down to you.
Yeah, for Speedy, it's a bit different. We do look at the income, but at the end of the day, it's about the purpose of the loan and the exit. So how they're going to pay it back, whether it's a different business or they're going to sell that property in 6 months. We wouldn't necessarily just look at the income from it. We'd look at what the exit is.
Okay. And guys, this is a bit of a sticky one because it can go one of two ways. Would you lend to a startup company that had set itself up in the last 12 months that obviously with COVID last year had been given government grants to keep the company afloat? Would you look at lending to that particular company if it's come over the 12 months, but it was sustained in that first 12 months by the government grants that were available for small business? Simon Winters, over to you.
Yeah, bread and butter for Prosper. The government grant thing's interesting. It depends on the government grant, and if it's a grant and not repayable, then no issue. If it's a loan, then we'll try and work out what the loan structure is. If it's like a situation where repayments don't start for 5 years, we'll exclude it. But if it's going to start soon, we'll have to include those repayments into the maximum servicing that they can provide.
Perfect. Andrew Habib, over to you at Bluestone, something you can consider?
On the home loan side of things, I mean, you know, a lot of businesses and companies receive government grants, and you know, we all know what happened, you know, not so long ago. So there's nothing wrong with companies that receive that, and that might be why they kept afloat or whatever it might be. However, we do remove that income from their tax returns or whichever way they're proving income, and continue with earned income from the business. We don't want to rely on it because, again, we can't rely that they're going to continue to get those grants.
Perfect. And Cooper, from your side of things, something you consider over at Speedy?
Yeah, we definitely consider it. With the grant side of things, we definitely, like I said, we do look at the exit strategy. So we take a look and make sure that, you know, they can exit the loan, whether they have contract or they're going to be selling X amount of goods to exit it at whatever the exit date is. But yeah, something we'd definitely look at still.
Perfect. Hey, Bib, I just want to come up to you at Bluestone for a very brief moment. If somebody has a small default, let's just say we'll pick a figure here at $1,000 on their credit file, in today's lending environment, is this something that Bluestone will still consider under their non-prime program?
Yeah, up to $500 paid, it's a prime deal for us. So, you know, nothing changes as far as risk fees or increased rates or risk to our lending book. Up to 500 paid, up to 1,000 it goes into our near prime. So we can have a look at those things. So up to 500 is ignored. It's a prime deal. Again, you've got your 90% no LMI, etc. on a $500 paid default. So. And
is that one or two defaults? Are we talking they could have 3, they could have 10 under $500? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, one under 500.
One under 500. Perfect. And does Bluestone at the moment have any special deals in the marketplace that are available for brokers to pass on to their consumers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, we've touched on it a couple of times. No LMI, so it's a big one. And I think the quicker that we get our heads around the fact that we've got a lender not charging LMI, I think it's sort of going to be better for everyone.
Yeah. Look, I like rehashing on that one because it was something I only learnt a matter of a week and a half ago when we were down at Kingscliff, that our wonderful people over at Bluestone have got the no LMI product up to 90%. And look, off the record, mate, it's probably something I'll be looking at in the next 6 months as well. So, you know, there's a good 90 odd brokers that are out there on this call at the moment that I'm sure I'm going to get a phone call from now that are going to be like, Leah, you're in the market for a home loan. Let me be the broker that looks after you. So,
let me know.
I'm all up for it.
Out for your deal, Leah. I'll keep an eye out.
I'm totally all up for it, guys. You know, I'll be interested to see now who the first one is to send the email across to me going, Leah, let me look after you. I'm not quite sure if any broker would want to look after me, though. Let me throw that out there now. So, guys, the final question that I have at the moment, and it's going to come down to exit plans and exit strategies for brokers. Obviously, we all move into that lending space as well. What are the main things you're going to be looking for in an exit strategy from a broker for their client? And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Habib.
Yeah, exit strategy is a pretty simple one for us. You know, downsizing is a pretty simple one. So, you know, depending on the age of applicant, we look at retirement age at the age of 70. So as long as we can see that at the age of 70, they can either, you know, sell, downsize, or if it's investment property, obviously sell the property. It's a really, really simple one for us. So again, numbers specific, LVR, loan amounts, etc. Have a chat with your BDM before you submit the deal, and talk to our credit guys. Have a chat with us first, and we'll help you, you know, with a suitable exit strategy if it obviously suits the client.
I think I'm going to be worried if I still have a mortgage at the age of 70, let me tell you that much now. Simon Winters, over to you. Exit strategies. What are the main things that Prosper's looking for in an exit strategy from someone?
Exit strategy doesn't really factor into our decisioning. Our maximum loan term is 3 years, so it's a pretty quick process. So really, to answer the question, we just want to make sure that they can actually afford the loan that we're providing to them. So we will look at their statements, get their income, get their expenses, work out what they can actually afford to repay, and that determines how much we actually lend to that SME.
Perfect. Cooper, down to you at Speedy.
Yeah, so with Speedy, because we do offer interest-only products, they're not paying P&I to pay the loan down. The exit strategy is pretty important to us. The big thing for us is just making sure it makes sense. You know, if we have a deal and they're saying, you know, they're going to pay it with cash flow, they're borrowing 100 grand and paying earning 5 grand every month, it's not really making too much sense. So as long as they have a strong exit, whether it's a sale of goods, a contract in place, or selling their property, things like that, just a solid exit strategy.
Awesome. And I do love me a good exit strategy. So I think that that is one of the amazing things that happens behind the scenes there. So guys, I'm hoping Surinder's hanging around behind the scenes at the moment. If you are, can you turn your camera on for me? Because I actually have a question for you. The question from the crowd at the moment is, do you still lend for rent rolls?
Yes, absolutely.
There's a short, quick answer from you. What's the parameters around it, mate?
So again, we're probably, because I'm a very simple person, everything we do is the same. So whether it's a mortgage broker, a financial planner, or a real estate agent, maximum loan is 1.5 times the annual revenue. So if it's property management revenue, you've got a rent roll that's turning over $100,000 a year in fee income. Again, max loan 150, simple.
Perfect. And look, we've got to love simplistic lending, I think, especially in today's market. The easier we make it, the faster turnaround times we have, the better we're going. Habib, really quick last question for you, and I'm going to wrap things up on the panel. Can you let me know your current turnaround times? Because we all love the conversation of SLAs.
24 hours.
Oh, is that 24 hours approval, docs out, signed, done?
I'll settle it. No, I'm kidding. So deal submitted today at 10 a.m. You'll have a conditional approval tomorrow at 10 a.m. Yeah, providing obviously you've got all your supporting docs, etc. Have a chat with your BDM. If you could do an upfront val with us as well, and that comes in, you know, with the deal. Well, you got a 24-hour formal, and you know our settlement process is pretty quick. So I'm seeing stuff turned around, and I wouldn't sort of talk about it if that wasn't the case, even at this time of year. So we've got plenty of capacity to do a lot more business, guys. So don't hesitate.
Perfect. And guys, I just want to thank you all for your time this morning on today's panel. Obviously, there are so many more questions that we could sit here and go through. There's so many more scenarios that we could sit here and go through at the moment. But, if, you know, to the audience as well, if you do have any sticky scenarios and anything like that you would like us to put forward to our panels that we have that do come on and that were on yesterday as well, please let me know. I'm happy to forward them through on your behalf. But I do want to thank again our wonderful sponsors from Bluestone, Speedy Finance, Prosper, and Trailbook Loans. And Miss Christine, that's me done finally for my rounds of e-sessions and panel inquiries. And I know that everybody's going to miss the dulcet tones of my voice this morning. So I'll still be hanging around, guys. If anybody's got any questions, let me know. But Christine, I'll hand over to you.
Great, thank you, Leah, and some really awesome questions as well. Big thanks again to the panel. There's some wonderful solutions, and no doubt all our members here, make sure you reach out to our panelists as well. So we're going to now move through to my pleasure of actually introducing our keynote speaker, Rebekah Smith from Smith & Wellness, who will be talking about practical strategies for stress reduction. Beck Smith is a TEDx speaker and expert in mental fitness who consults to organisations on ways to reduce stress, prevent burnout, improve communication and optimise team culture. She is a former psychotherapist with a background in psychology who also teaches dance and yoga classes when she isn't working as a positive psychology coach. As someone who has recovered from burnout and mental illness, Beck uses her personal experiences as well as her professional knowledge to help others optimize their lives.
Thank you for that lovely introduction and welcome everybody. I'm Beck. I'm currently sitting in cold, chilly Adelaide, and I would like to acknowledge that I'm on Kaurna country where I am. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land because their connection to the waters and the lands of the Adelaide Plains region is just as important to living Aboriginal people today as it has been for thousands of years before. So I want to acknowledge the elders, past, present and emerging, and the spiritual, emotional and physical connection that they have to Adelaide Plains region. Wherever you are joining me from today, I hope that you are well and thanks for connecting in. Today's session is going to be around some mental fitness strategies that you can take to manage stress. Originally, I had talked about this session being a stress reduction session. However, reducing stress is not always possible, as I'm sure many of you can attest to. So what can we do to better manage it so that it doesn't impact us as much? That's going to be the focus of this session. I'm going to give you a brain hack for managing stress better and also a body hack for managing stress better. And these two different strategies are things that you can do in combination and share with other people as well. So thank you for being here and let's get into it. Most of the work that I do is around investigating the cogs that are going on in our brain. A lot of people don't necessarily know what's underneath the surface, so these cogs can sometimes look a little bit like this. We're not necessarily aware of all of our thinking processes and what's going on in our brain. There is a lot of subconscious activity happening a lot of the time, and this is often what leads to stress. We may not even be aware of what is stressing us out, which is why sometimes some clever hacks for body and brain can be useful for getting under the hood, so to speak, and being able to manage that stress a lot better. The three different areas that I speak to when I'm talking about building our mental fitness, it's a little bit like going to the brain gym, working on our strength, working on our flexibility, and working on our endurance with different types of exercises. So I'm going to give you some more context around strength, flexibility, and endurance toward the end of the session. But I want to start by actually talking about some of the things that get in the way of our cogs turning properly. So here on the screen that you're seeing at the moment, and you're welcome to take a photo of this if this helps you, these are some factors that get in the way of our mental fitness. So you can see that on the left of the diagram, there are some things that make us mentally more fragile. On the right, things that make us mentally rigid. And down toward the bottom, things that zap our mental energy and make us more lethargic. So the few things that I'm going to be talking about today, we're going to cover as we go, but emotional reactivity is one that can come up a lot for me personally, particularly when I'm stressed. So that's where we're going to start. Now, in terms of emotional reactivity, and when we start to have a reaction to something that happens in our lives and it stresses us out, one of the common problems is that when a stimulus or a situation happens and leads to some kind of emotional response, we think that that's the end of the story. So I'm going to unpack what we call the STR model for you today. And STR stands for stimulus, thought, response. Because most of us think that, well, of course I got angry because this happened, we tend to make that quick jump from the stimulus to the response. But many of us forget that there's this thinking part in the middle. So what you're going to see on your screen at the moment is that in between the stimulus and the response, there's this gap. And this is where our thoughts occur. Now, those thoughts may be an accurate representation of what has happened, but they may not be accurate either. And the stimulus that has caused a thought could have happened from outside of us. So it could have been an event has occurred. Somebody has knocked over the glass of milk. Or that stimulus could have been more of an internal event. It could have been a sensation that we've had in our body that stresses us out, a pain of some sort, or even a thought that then leads to another thought. Now, once we get into that thought space of looking, well, are these thoughts accurate or not? It leads to this response, which could be an emotional response or it could be a behavioural response. So if something has happened in your workday, in your family life, in your friendships, that has triggered some kind of emotion in you, that might be something that you hold inside and you don't express, or it might be an emotional response that then also comes out in your behaviour. You might get snappy, you might cry, you might yell. And so you can have an emotional response and a behavioural response. They're not always observable. They're not always seen by other people as well. So this is very much about looking inside of you and starting to analyse, okay, when I'm stressed out, when a situation happens that has stressed me out, what are the thoughts that have led me to this? So I'm going to give you an example. The last time I was travelling to Melbourne, which was pre-COVID, back in the days of free travel, I was on a flight and there was a flight attendant that came along and asked us what we would like to drink. I asked for a cup of tea and the two people next to me asked for orange juice. When she started pulling stuff out of the drinks cart, she handed the two passengers next to me their juice and I was waiting for my tea. Now that wasn't so problematic. I thought, okay, that's fine. The hot drinks are coming last. Then the cart moved back to the aisle behind me and still didn't have my cup of tea. I thought, oh, that's okay. Just waiting, just waiting. And then the cart moved further along. And I thought, oh, I wonder if they're waiting for hot water. Maybe they're out of boiling water and it's just taking a little while. And my tea didn't come. Now, I started to get frustrated at this point. And the flight attendant who had been serving me, whose name was Pam, I started to create some thoughts about her and started to have a response in my body, which was muscular tension. My heart rate actually started to go a little bit faster because I was frustrated and I just wanted my cup of tea, damn it. So in the slide that's coming up now, you can see that the stimulus thought response model is also paired with this kind of thinking that if this happens, then I think this. So for instance, in this situation with Pam, the flight attendant, if Pam doesn't bring me my tea, then I start to think Pam is forgetful, Pam is useless, Pam's a cow, Pam should have brought me my tea, right? So a lot of the time when there's frustration involved, we often have an idea of what should have happened rather than what is happening right there. And so once I've had those thoughts, then it leads to this response around I'm angry and I'm frustrated. Now, in this moment, I had to reflect that ironically, I was flying to Melbourne to teach this kind of content around managing our thoughts, managing our stress, and calming ourselves down in frustrating situations. So I was actually able to ask myself, what would I tell somebody else in this situation? And I started to change the thought patterns that I had. And this is when we start to become more practiced at using the STR model, it becomes more automated for us. It's a really great way of starting to channel our thoughts toward things that are more productive for us rather than unproductive for us. So in this instance, I was able to change my if-then thinking to more, well, what if thinking? Or what if this is going on instead? Or what if that is going on instead? So when you start to open up to different possibilities, rather than just thinking about what should happen, you start to get a little bit more expansive around what might be happening or what could be happening, then you start to feel different. So in this instance, I started to ask myself, okay, what if I change my thoughts and ask some questions? What if Pam is sick? What if she's forgotten me today because she's really stressed? What could possibly be going on for her? And then the feeling is not so much anger and frustration anymore. My response becomes I'm less stressed And I actually feel more compassionate, and I actually feel a bit more caring toward this woman who's forgotten my tea. So it's just a small example, but think about how many times in your day you might have these little stress triggers and how much that can accumulate over the course of the day. First thing in the morning, you know, you kind of something might go wrong at home. You know, the cat's bowl gets knocked over and water goes everywhere. Oh, that's just a little stress. And then you leave the house and then you get in the car and realize you've forgotten your lunch. And then somebody makes a comment in the office that just rubs you up the wrong way. And these little things can accumulate during the day so that by the end of the day, you're going, oh, this was terrible. The whole day was just awful. But if we could actually start to stop in the moment that we're starting to have these thoughts and go, all right, is the thought or the belief that I've got about this situation accurate? Is the thought or belief that I'm having right now productive for me? And can I change my thinking? Instead of going, if this happens, then I feel this. What if? How could we open ourselves up to different possibilities? So how many examples can you think of where you could possibly transform a should into a could? So on that day, Pam maybe should have got me my tea, but she didn't. So just in thinking, well, Pam could have got me my tea, but it didn't happen. Then I started to open myself up to possibilities. So as you can see in the image on your screen, instead of being lost in the maze of my thinking, I was actually able to elevate myself to a perspective where I could see the thoughts that I was having from a different lens, from a different viewpoint. And from that viewpoint, I could go, oh, this is a much better pathway for me to take. So I didn't get my tea. What else could I do about that? So the next flight attendant that came along, I flagged her down and I said, could I possibly get a cup of tea? And she went, no problems, let me go get that for you. And she did. So I think the old version of me could have sat there, not asked for what I needed, stewed on it, actually stayed with that little bit of resentment and frustration. So how many times in a day do we do that? And the next time you have one of those instances in your day where you're getting frustrated, where you're getting lost in the shoulds, how can you open yourself up to what if thinking? How can you start to see in your mind's eye that model of STR and come back to that thought space and steer your thinking towards something that's more productive for you? So that's the brain hack that I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that those visuals and some of that perspective is really, really useful for helping to shape some of the small stresses that happen day to day. Now, a common question that I get asked at this point is, but what if I can't change my thinking about something? What if I know that my thoughts are accurate and I know that I'm right and I'm still feeling frustrated? Well, you might need to use a different strategy. So the tools that I teach in mental fitness, the exercises that I give for people to improve their strength and their flexibility and their endurance, it's a little bit like a repertoire of different exercises that you use at different times when you need to. You wouldn't use a flexibility exercise if you were trying to improve your strength and vice versa. It's like a toolkit. You're not going to be using a hammer when actually you need a screwdriver. So STR is one of those exercises or one of those tools in your toolkit that you can use when maybe that little shift in thinking can be useful to give you a more productive response. However, it's not necessarily always going to be the most useful strategy. So this is where I'm going to now change and start talking about a body hack that we can start to use and give you some context around how our brain connects into our bodies. So what you're seeing on your screen at the moment is a model called the Triune Brain. And this is based on evolutionary biology. So the theory goes that as we evolved a long time, that we first started with this very primal brain, what you'll see on your screen as red at the moment. So some people refer to this as the reptile brain or the lizard brain. It's very much concerned with our safety and our survival. It regulates all of our physical body processes, like it helps us to regulate our body heat. It will send signals to us to let us know if we're thirsty and need water, if we're hungry and we need food, if we are feeling too cold or hot, need shelter, etc. Now, it's also responsible for telling us if there's a threat in our environment that might be a predator of some sort. So this red part of the brain is all about giving you danger signals so that you can stay safe and do what you need to do to protect yourself. The blue part of the brain is sometimes called the mammal brain. Sometimes we refer to this as the emotional or the limbic system. You might have heard about the limbic system being referred to in the brain. As mammals evolved on from reptiles, they started to become more social creatures. And we're one of those mammals. We are connected to other human beings, and feeling a sense of belonging, feeling that other people care about us, feeling that we are connected, that we're loved, is the most important thing to this blue part of the brain. So if we are connected to our tribe, it meant that we were, in kind of caveman and cavewoman days, much more likely to survive. And so the blue and the red part of our brain communicate in order to protect us. And this blue part is more about social protection and how well am I connected. The green part of the brain is what you're going to be using when you are making decisions, problem solving, and it's referred to as the executive part of the brain. You may have heard it being spoken about before as the prefrontal cortex, and this is where all of the logical stuff happens. Now, the thing about these three developmental areas is that the brain and the body will put priority on survival before it puts priority on logic and other decision making. So what happens if we're in a stressed state is that the green part of our brain kind of goes offline and doesn't want to work for us anymore. So if we're having an emotional response to something that starts to hijack our thinking, even if we want to calm ourselves down, even if we want to be able to concentrate, even if we want to be able to do our best work, we can't, because the blue and the red part of our brain have hijacked us. Now, if you're in a constant state of stress, it means that you're not going to be able to think clearly through anything that you need to do. So actually managing our stress is a really important thing, not just from the perspective of staying healthy and happy and calm, but actually just getting stuff done, being the most productive version of ourselves that we can. So with these three centers in mind, I'm going to introduce you to this concept called the negativity bias. Now, this is another evolutionary biology idea. The negativity bias is the tendency of the brain to only look at the bad things, as you can see on the cartoon on your screen. So the rest of you might be going, oh, look at this beautiful, amazing experience. Look at, oh, these beautiful people in my life. But your brain will just want to steer back to, no, this is problematic. The reason that it happens is, again, because it kept us safe to focus on problems. So if you imagine as a caveman or a cavewoman that you're walking along and you hear a rustle in the grass, it really does serve your survival needs if you pay attention to that, right? And think, oh my gosh, it could be a predator. I need to act and get away from here now. Whereas if you didn't have a negativity bias and if you were just kind of like, oh, I wonder what that is, let's be curious and let's go and explore it, then you might get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So the negativity bias evolved. Well, natural selection really kind of kept selecting people who had more anxious brains because they were the ones who were on more of a lookout for danger. So what it means is that we have this kind of evolutionary hangover where even if great stuff is happening for us, even if we have everything that we need, even if we are surrounded by people that we love, even if we're having a myriad of positive experiences and great interactions, your brain will still want to look at the problems and go, oh, yeah, but I still don't have the car that I want, or I still haven't hit my goal, or I still don't have enough of this. And so a lot of us can slip into negative patterns of thinking and think that then there's something wrong with us. A lot of people find that it's actually hard to practice gratitude because of this negativity bias. But when I first found out that we have a natural negativity bias in our brain, I was so relieved. I thought for the first time, oh my gosh, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. This is great, because your brain will actually put about 5 to 6 times more emphasis on negative information than it does on positive information. And that's just a natural human condition. But the body hack that I'm going to teach you today is about how can we rewire that so that we can appreciate the good things in our life and leverage from the positive emotion that it brings. What I'm introducing on the screen now are these 2 different pathways in our nervous system. So in the middle, you can see the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and spine. Coming off of that, you have the autonomic nervous system, which has these 2 different branches. So roughly we can split the autonomic nervous system into the parasympathetic, which you can see in purple, and the sympathetic nervous system in green. The parasympathetic being about rest and restoration and healing your system. This will kick in when you're in a positive frame of mind, and it will kick in when you're in a calm state. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, is all about, I need to mobilize. I either need to get away from danger or I need to fight danger off. So this is what is going to kick in when you are stressed. So what happens with these different regions of the brain is if the red or the blue part of your brain is detecting some kind of physical or social threat, it will then send signals into the fight and flight system to activate stuff in your body, increasing your heart rate, making you breathe faster so you can get oxygen in to run or fight. It starts to have an impact on your pupils, dilating your pupils so that you can see better. And it also starts to bring blood flow toward your muscles in your arms and legs so that you can activate your body. And it takes blood flow away from your organ systems. Now, this has a negative impact on our health over time, which is why stress actually has an important role in the development of diabetes and cardiovascular disease and other disease processes. So it's really important to start to regulate and learn how to regulate our nervous system so that we can actually get that healing and blood flow that we need into our organ systems to keep us physiologically as well as mentally healthy. I sometimes describe the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in terms of a brake and an accelerator in your body. So the parasympathetic being that brake that slows everything down and allows the rest and the restoration to occur, and the sympathetic nervous system, that fight and flight accelerator being, all right, everything switch on. The relevance of this is that over the last few years, there's been more and more research done in the topic of heart rate variability. When we look at the heart rate, it gives us an indication as to whether the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is more dominant at any one time. In other words, are you using your accelerator more or using your brake more? Because ultimately, just like a car, the vehicle of your body will not function well if you're trying to use one or the other. It actually needs both. So we need to have a balance between that brake and accelerator. I'm going to bring up a diagram now that shows some heart rhythm patterns. On the screen, what you're seeing is not just an indication of heart rate, which is how fast your heart is going, but it's an indication of whether it's going faster or slower. So when the line is going up, that's when your heart rate is accelerating. The sympathetic nervous system is kicking in. And when the line is going down, that's when you are starting to slow down. That's the parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. So the brake and the accelerator on the top part of the diagram here in red is fluctuating in a bit more of a haphazard way. It's kind of like, oh, I'm slowing down, no, I'm speeding up, I'm slowing down, oh, and it's all over the place. This is what happens when we are in a frustrated or anxious or worried kind of emotional state. The sympathetic nervous system kicks in, that red part of the brain starts to send signals into your autonomic nervous system, and this is what happens with our heart rate variability. However, in the bottom part of the diagram, you'll see what we call nervous system coherence, which is where the brake and the accelerator are fluctuating nice and smoothly. If you think about driving your car, it's not a great idea to be stomping on both pedals at the same time or haphazardly going on and off of them. It's going to wear out your vehicle and lead to a very bumpy and unsafe ride. And it's the same with our body. So if we can just smoothly come off of the brake to then activate the accelerator and then slowly come off the accelerator to put the brake on, that is a much smoother trip and it's much safer for us, which is what we want to see in our nervous system patterns as well. And this is what is elicited in your body when you start to have more experiences of positive emotion. Now, this is something that you can start to instigate and you can choose for yourself by practicing positive emotion, a little bit like you're rewiring that negativity bias. So in that little section down the bottom of the screen at the moment, you'll see that this is what we often see when people are experiencing appreciation, care, love, gratitude. So a little body hack that you can use to shift your heart rhythm patterns from what looks very stressful to that more coherent pattern is a 3-part system that the Heart Math Institute has researched, which is called heart-based appreciation. So the body hack that I want to share with you today, these 3 steps are, first of all, and you can do it with me right now, slow down your breathing as the first of 3 steps. So take a deeper breath than you normally would and breathe out slowly, maybe even longer than your inhalation. Now, I know that deep breathing gets talked about a lot, and it probably, people will talk about, oh, just take a breath, which can kind of sound very dismissive, but actually what you're doing when you slow down your breathing is really important. What's happening is you are activating the parasympathetic nervous system and actually hacking your brain and sending signals into that red part of your brain that everything is okay. If you're running away from a predator, there's no way you're going to be breathing this slowly. So this is sending a subconscious signal into those parts of the brain to say it's okay. We don't have to go into survival mode. We can actually transcend survival mode and go into logical thinking mode. Now, the second step around this, once you've slowed down your breathing, is to think about your ribcage or your lungs or your heart and visualize where that breathing is coming from. So bring focus into your body's sensations. Just take a few seconds now, maybe close your eyes if you want to, and focus in on your heart. Maybe even visualize it's beating. Can you feel it speeding up? Could you feel it slowing down? Now, what you're doing with that second step it's very part of your limbic system to calm down your emotions. The insula is responsible for something called interoception, which is our internal body's systems starting to get an internal sensation of our body. So not just the sensations of the nerves of, our arms and our legs, but the nerves that are telling us what's going on within our internal body. That then is starting to itself have these connections into that mammal brain to say, hey, you can calm down as well. The third part is around bringing in the green part of your brain and actually starting to think more about what can you see right now that is good in your world. So starting to think now as the third step, what is something that you appreciate in your life? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a pet, maybe it's a happy memory, and call that to mind. Bring in that green part of your brain, the logical executive part, in a positive way. And as you're breathing, imagine that you are now bringing gratitude in as you breathe in. Heart rate might be speeding up a little. And then breathe out and send that appreciation outwards. So training your brain to look for the positives and to start to practice feeling appreciation is that important third step. We also know, as a quick little tip here from neuroscience, that it takes about 17 seconds for these patterns to shift and for different neurochemicals to start flooding your system when you shift into a positive state. So if you think a happy thought, if you think about something you're grateful for, don't just hang on to it for 3 seconds and then move on to the next stressful thought. See if you can savor that moment for 17 seconds or more. So if you can sit in a feeling of gratitude for about 20 seconds, then you really start to see some physiological as well as psychological shifts. It starts to change the way that your dopamine and your serotonin is acting in your brain and starts to shift your cardiovascular and other rhythms and nervous system activation through your body as well. So those 3 steps in summary again: slow down your breathing, start to think about your internal body and feel that, and then start to shift your thinking into something of appreciation and gratitude. So that little body hack there is going to have a significant impact on managing your stress. And it might be something that you just do in one breath. It might be something you do in between client meetings. It might be something that you do in the car, on the train, on the way home. It might just be something you do in the shower. So see if you can integrate it, whether it's for 1 breath or 50, sometime during your day. The more frequently you do it, then the more likely you are to be able to rewire that negativity bias in your brain to be able to appreciate what's good in your world and reduce that stress response, both for the benefit of your body and your mind. Here are some other little hacks that I want to share with you, some positivity tips. So one thing that I teach, and I'm talking to a group soon about this, is around keeping a done list. So instead of just having a to-do list of, oh, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, keep a done list. So keep that list of going, this is what I've accomplished. Because when you feel a sense of achievement in your day, it increases the amount of dopamine in your brain and actually makes you more motivated to want to do more. Another positivity tip is to celebrate strengths. So when you're looking at somebody, and even if there's somebody who's frustrating you, think about what strengths they're showing. I know I've got somebody in my life who sometimes really frustrates me because she is so blunt to the point where sometimes I think, oh my God, you're so rude. But when I think about her in terms of, do you know what? She has a real strength in honesty. I can start to see that through a different lens, and I start to see that not as problematic, but I see it as a strength instead of a weakness. And it doesn't just help my relationship with her, it may not even make any impact on her, but it changes the way that I feel about that interaction. And then the third tip is expressing appreciation. So once you have felt something that you appreciate, share it with somebody, especially directly with the person. If you are feeling appreciation for them, tell them how grateful you are for them. Say thank you. Tell them that you've noticed something that they've done. And in that sharing, there's a huge influx of positive emotions, positive neurochemicals, positive hormones that come into your body, as well as for that other person. So give it a go. Express appreciation to somebody today. So a question that I would like to leave you with as we wrap up this presentation today is, what could change in your work life or even in your personal life if you were to improve one aspect of your mental fitness? So what would happen if you started to become practiced at that STR model and starting to shift your unproductive thoughts to productive thoughts? What could shift if you started to use that body hack of that heart-based appreciation breathing? Or indeed, coming up on your screen right now, there's a slide which shows a range of different mental fitness exercises that you can take. So in terms of building our mental strength, starting to focus on character strengths, like I talked about, instead of just thinking, oh, somebody's really blunt and rude, start to think about it in terms of their strength of honesty. And start to think about, what are your strengths that you bring out in your behaviour every day? Awareness. So STR is really one of those skills that helps us to become more aware of what's going on in our internal processing and communicate that better. Authenticity, which is about being less fake and keeping things a bit more real and expressing a true side of yourself. Mental flexibility, which is about practicing creative thinking, innovation and problem solving. Letting go of perfectionism and starting to practice self-compassion as well as compassion toward others. And another flexibility exercise, which is letting go of doubt and starting to trust more. Or what might change in your life if you started to let go of being mentally lethargic and started to build your mental energy and endurance by living into your values and what's really important to you. Letting go of being exhausted and busy all the time and actually practicing some stillness, even if it's just in little micro doses. Or what would shift if you started to get control of your fear and started to practice more emotional mastery and started to use the power of your emotions instead of trying to repress them? So these are the 9 topic areas around mental fitness that I teach. Different exercises for each of those topics as well. And if you'd like to find out more about them, you can go to this website, which is up on your screen at the moment, which is smithandwellness.com/resources. There is a TEDx talk there that I've done on mental fitness. There's some YouTube vlogs on there that you can check out. And also there's an online course which takes you through those 9 different topic areas one by one that you can explore in your own time. Now, a couple of questions that often come up at this stage. A lot of people ask me around mindfulness and meditation. So one thing that I want to suggest is that actually in that whole arena around stillness, meditation and mindfulness are some of the things that I teach. And there is a lot of research to support that when you start to practice mindfulness, even if it's broken down into very small segments during your day, You don't have to sit for 30 minutes or an hour for mindfulness or meditation to make an impact. You can break it into smaller components, and it actually makes a huge difference, not only to your experience, but it's been shown through MRI studies that it increases the grey matter and the white matter in your brain. It actually helps your processing. So there's a really great app that I use called Insight Timer. A lot of people go, oh, are there apps that I should use? Is there a YouTube video that I should go to? I love Insight Timer. So for those people who are wondering what a good meditation and mindfulness resource is, go and check that out. It's downloadable on your phone, and you can actually put in a time to say, look, I've only got 5 minutes, or I've only got 3 minutes. Give me a meditation that I can do in a short amount of time, or it has longer meditations that it can take you through as well. So for those people who are wondering, yes, mindfulness is a very useful strategy for building your mental fitness, and Insight Timer is a great resource that you can use. And that other question, which I touched on before around, well, what if this isn't going to be useful for me in a particular situation? Use this mental fitness model like a little bit of a toolkit. So you can select one part that might be useful today, you can select 3 parts, and tomorrow you might find that you need something else. So you can also use it as a bit of a self-assessment to go, what do I need right now? So I hope that this session has been useful for you today, as giving you some concrete and practical strategies for managing your stress. As I said earlier in the session, please feel free to share it with other people as well. Talk about these strategies in your family, share it with your friends, because the more people who understand some of these little mental fitness hacks, then the healthier we are all going to be together. So enjoy the rest of your eSummit. Good luck, go well, take care, and stay in touch with me online. If you have any questions following the session that come up for you, please feel free to get in touch with the FBAA and they can pass that on to me, or you can also get in touch with me on the website via your screen. So thank you again, go well, take care, bye for now.
Wonderful, and thank you so much, Beck, for those brain hacks and body hacks. I don't know how many of us here today have those PAM experience moments, whether it's we're engaging with customers or our business partners, but imagine the impact and change on your day and the outcome if we just change our mindset around the what if. And Beck's given us some really great hacks and skills to be able to help deal with that stress. So moving right through now, it's my pleasure, Angela from ALI. So Angela's going to be presenting on how major life events influence the purchase of personal insurance with ALI Group. Thanks, Angela. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen okay?
Can, Ange.
Wonderful, thank you. All right. So our mission at ALI Group is to protect Australian home property buyers from financial hardship. And let me see if I can make this screen a little bit bigger for you. And this lies in the very core of everything we do, and this is only made possible by our mortgage brokers. It would be great if we could align mortgage protection conversation the same way we do CTP insurance when we buy a car. Research has shown that certain life stages triggered purchase for these type of financial products. The second is having a baby, but the first one is purchasing a property. So when taking out a debt like a mortgage, there are risks associated with that. So when talking about which way borrowers can reduce the risk, this is a great conversation to have. Now, there are a number of ways that consumers can purchase insurances. There's inbound, outbound, online, and the mortgage broker channel. So let's just go through a couple of those. Inbound phone calls allows consumers to ask questions and they can make informed decisions. This provides a script for a customer, and that can sometimes be intimidating. And there are incentives in play for a customer to make a decision on the spot. As for outbound phone calls, it's recently quite common. However, it highlights the different types of insurance, which is great, but some people are persuaded once again to purchase insurance that may not be appropriate to them, and they feel pressured into a sales process. And like most things today, online provides a convenience to do this at any time. However, there's a lot of choice and the information can be quite overwhelming. And with limited knowledge of personal insurance, what does the customer know? How does the customer know what to look for? And then finally, the mortgage broker channel. This offers consumers the convenience and customers can learn about the product. The nature of the interactions allows the customer to ask questions to the broker. Despite the availability of the other channels, many mortgage brokers can choose to buy life insurances with our policyholders to understand what they want. And let's share some of the findings with you on a research we recently just did. So the majority, 58%, agreed to some extent that they had not considered the risk of not having insurance until their broker mentioned it. 32% agreed, while 26% tended to agree with the statement. It's often considered a topic that few want to discuss or think about. However, 70% of those that we surveyed who have a My Protection plan that was taken out through their mortgage broker had not considered it until it was first raised by the mortgage broker. And it was worth noting that all of these that we surveyed went on to take out a policy. So this interest grew from there. What we want to consider is where would our policy holders be now? So with this survey and understanding a customer's needs, the mortgage broker is the best opportunity to have this kind of conversation with. It's unlikely that a customer would purchase this product without a conversation happening. One of our recent claimants shared a testimonial that after having been diagnosed with colon cancer at just the age of 41 and losing his wife to an illness, he was grateful for the claim that was processed quickly of $46,000. When we spoke to him recently, we asked him what the claim meant to him. And his statement was, having ALI protection in place means I don't have to rush back to work and can focus on my health. As an accountant, I can recommend insurance to a lot of my clients. Having the payout and making the claim means I don't have to worry about my mortgage for a while or other out-of-pocket expenses, which came up during the cancer treatment. Unfortunately, bad things happen to good people, and we see it every day with the claims that we do pay out. If you would like to find out more about ALI and become an authorised representative, please visit our website with your intention to register. Thank you.
Thank you, Ange. Now, as you can see, Ange is out on the road. She is one lady that is always out there supporting her broker community. So, Ange, we really appreciate you being able to be with us today. And I think everybody on this call, on this virtual session knows the importance of protecting your customers. So thanks again, Ange.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Next, we'll hear from our FBAA Managing Director, Peter White, AM, and Nigel Rausch, the CEO of Two Red Kites. Unfortunately, Pete couldn't be here live to present as he's had a very busy travel schedule and advocating for the industry. So we've got an education session that was from our first Victoria and Tasmania eSummit to provide you with information around the tech space today and where it's likely to go in the future in a Q&A session. If you have any questions for them, please put it in the chat box and we'll provide this to them as soon as they come back. So over to you, Pete and Nigel.
And welcome everyone again to today. Also, I do want to say thank you to Senator the Honourable Jane Hume for the opening address that she's giving, and we look forward to hearing from her not only through these sessions but also in the future as well. I'd also like to thank Nigel, who's joining us this morning. You there, Nigel?
Hey.
There you go. G'day, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for joining us. Today we're looking at, I guess, the future of, or where the future is going with technology in the financial services sector and within broking businesses, and just in general where that market is treading. And I think it's very timely after coming out of the back of COVID, where we did everything digitally. It worked for some, not for everyone, and so we have a mixture of face-to-face and digital these days. But I think it'd be great to get an understanding of a few of the things that are happening now, as well as your view on where you think the future's going in regards to within technologies within businesses, and hopefully give some people some understanding directions of maybe what they should be doing in their business. So, Nigel, I might just sort of start with a bit of an opening thought, just a general thought from yourself as to Where is tech at the moment? I mean, there's so much talk about blockchains and AI and all this sort of stuff. Where really is the tech space at the moment? And where do you see it going in the next, say, 5 years? Just in a broad general sense.
Absolutely. Okay, so the tech industry is actually going crazy at the moment, as you can imagine. As you know, a year ago, you couldn't buy a webcam. That's a great example of how everything changed. People needed webcams to do Zoom calls. The same's happening with people realizing that they need to put their tech in a place that everyone can access all the time, securely, of course, instead of the old way of you need to be in the office, access this document, work on it, and then finish working on it. That was let's say the old way. Now, so tech is going that way forward, as well as we're getting a lot more of the interesting security things, like it's now actually at the point that if you're talking about blockchain, all we think about blockchain normally is dollars and cents, okay, or Bitcoin and things like that. But they're using that same type of technology for now property transfers and things like that to track a property transfer. And you've got now a unique identifier saying this was that particular property transfer, and you can keep the chain of events of that. So there's some really interesting, and other people are using it for contract management, so that each chain of a contract is recorded into the blockchain as a key, and you now know that that contract was that particular format at that moment in time, so that if someone did make a change to it in some way later, you can verify it against a blockchain, which is something that can't be changed. So,
and now that's really interesting because, and look, sorry, I probably should have let everybody know. Nigel is our tech expert at the FBAA, and he's doing a whole lot of software developments for us on our CRM and so on. And Nigel runs a business called Two Red Kites. Now, Nigel, I got to ask this because it's been burning me forever. Where did you get the name Two Red Kites? Tell me about how does that interrelate with technology?
Okay, so our main language that so my previous partner and we actually put a whole day aside. I don't know if anyone's started up. I've started up multiple businesses and sold them off and done all those type of things. And my business partner and I put a day aside to actually go try to pick a name. And we had our pre-SQL ideas of cloud because we do a lot of stuff in the cloud. Our main language that we write in is called Ruby, which is red. And there was two of us, and we came up with two red for Ruby and kites because they're in the clouds. And we didn't want to have that tech stuff or tech this or tech that type company. We wanted to have something that was a little bit different. We now abbreviate. This is my new show that I've only just gotten. I'm trying to go over the top, but we now call ourselves 2RK just to make it a little bit simpler for people as well. But that's where that came from. And it's a little bit unique, and hopefully people remember it. So as I say, funny name, but serious business.
Very good, and I certainly remember it. It's thank you for sharing that. I know it's a little impromptu, but it's always interesting how names get developed and what's sitting behind. Well, I find it fascinating anyhow. Thank you, sir. Coming back to what you're saying, I was just as you were talking before about the connecting chains of events through blockchain as such, and what that looks like as to how you get a UIP, a unique identifier, and so on with it. It's for someone like me who's been in the industry for a long time. I remember back to a thing where the land title of a property was called a chain of title. And when you transferred a property between owners, you get in settlements a stack of paper like this, just monumental stack of paper. And you had to go through line by line by line of the chain of title to validate its authenticity and legal ownership of the property and transfer the property. And it's almost like it's taken that old process that then became a Torrens title, and it all changed from there, into a digitized form of that style of thought process to validate the entire chain of history of events, that it's all good and all legal. Is that fair assumption?
Yeah, and look, we build, so probably the background here is, and I think where Peter was going before is that there's going to be some really exciting new things everyone's going to see shortly from the FBAA back-end system, which is going to be really exciting for you, which we're working on at the moment. But Two Red Kites actually do lots of building from consignment systems through to a bereavement support system through to babysitting systems. So we've worked in so many different domains, and it's a lot of fun because of that. But one of the things that we get really worried is when someone comes to us with hey, here's something totally new, we want to do this. And there is no previous process. They don't even have a paper-based process for it. And we're going, okay, you need to at least do it in paper first, prove the concept, because paper can get changed really quickly. Okay, once you write some code and you're stuck with that, it costs money to change. So I'm a firm believer that it's really important to work out those paper-based processes first. Remember that those paper-based processes won't flow straight into web-based processes, because in a paper-based one, you might have a compulsory field like last name, but you'll still hand that form off to the next person without that last name in there. A online form is going to say, nope, you can't submit that until you put that last name in. Okay, so you have to remember those type of things, but you're now getting a lot more control over that environment. So I believe you have to watch how those things work, and then it's just a standard growth pattern for them.
Sure. And is that sort of like the first base if you're going to customize your own software? So yeah, we look at that customization process. I remember going back 10, 20 years, maybe longer, back in the very early days, if you went to a developer to customize software for you, you sort of double the time frame and double the cost, and you might be getting near the mark of where it's going to land. Very different world these days, but principally, is that what you do? You take your paper process, map it out, and then build a customized software underneath that so it suits your particular business rather than a box off a shelf?
Exactly. So funny enough, like even yesterday, a client that I had that was, got something popping up. Okay. A client that I had yesterday that was actually, and their company is actually called Poles and Holes. Okay, so they actually do electrical poles at construction sites, and I guess you can guess what the holes is all about. And they basically, I gave them a proposal for a custom solution because they had rewritten their original application in Access database, and they had the ability for multiple people to use it. So, and they actually got, they went, okay, I'm going to use an off-the-shelf product to do this. It can do everything we can do, and it's only going to cost me $200 a month compared to, say, $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000 to develop it. And they actually called me yesterday and went, okay, we realized it created so much extra work for us having to try to follow somebody else's process, not our process. And I always say it's the cart pushing the horse. It's an old saying, but you know, it's a very valid thing where the cart is actually pushing the horse around instead of the horse pulling the cart. Okay, and you're being controlled by their processes, not like, let's use Salesforce as a great example there. You're controlled by their process, and if you have some specific process or workflows, you can't easily set them up yourself. And that's the big thing.
That's very much the case with the FBAA. We are with Salesforce, although we're transitioning onto your new system. And I gotta admit, it's been a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you, and extraordinarily expensive. And every time you sneeze, something breaks, and it's more cost, and just.
But can we just confirm this? You're talking about Salesforce here. It sounds like you're talking about my system.
No. Your system. Well, we're not on your system yet. We're waiting to get on it. I can't wait to finish it off. So we're close to that.
It is. Salesforce is now the new SAP, and if everyone knows about SAP, if you've ever had to get an SAP, so it's the big accounting system. It's like the top end, accounting system, And you're talking, you pay $1 million for the software, and then it will be another 2 or 3 million to configure it the way that you want to use it. SAP is what was used in Queensland Health and didn't pay all the nurses and all those type of things. So that's the scenario that is now happening with Salesforce, and a lot of people are getting stuck in that situation. It's a great product, but use it for what it is, not for trying to make it into something else. So,
well, thank God we haven't spent millions, but even in my head, we've probably spent way too much on Salesforce over all these years. So I'll be happy to get out of it, let me assure you. So tell me more, let's talk about the cloud. Tell me a little bit around what online solutions and online tools, how they benefit a business and how they can be used a bit within a person's business.
Okay, well, the obvious one is Zoom. Like, don't you wish you had bought shares in January last year of Zoom? It's now worth ridiculous amounts of money. But
Afterpay was the other one I should have bought shares in.
Exactly. Tools like Zoom. Now, being a development company, we actually can work totally remote, and I can use a totally remote team if I wanted to. I could use a team that is overseas. I choose not to because I like to be part of the community and have a local development team, but it would be 5 times cheaper to use Ukraine resources or stuff like that. And one of the things that I did find is using Zoom. I think Zoom is one of those great products that everyone's jumped onto. Excuse me, I have to stop for a sec because I'm going to have to cough. So, Pete,
you do that? Well, Nigel's coughing. One of the things that we did in the FBAA is that we transitioned from everybody working in the office to, obviously in COVID, everybody had to work from home, but then we came back into a split system. And I can tell you, I'm a bit old school. I was dead set against people working from home. And then as through COVID and we came out the back end of it, I said, I'm dead set not going back to the office. So anyhow, we worked the split structure when we got back. So we had staff that, we worked 1 week in the office and 1 week from home. And we did that for, a couple of months. And then the staff turned around and asked me, so look, what we would like to do is to work Monday and Friday from home and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office. And I said, well, that just sounds like a long weekend to me. So we cut a deal and said, well, look, so long as KPIs are met, so long as we continue to grow, I'm good with it. But if you don't, you lose the lot. So today, it has been extraordinarily successful. And we have, as Leah would be today, she's probably working from home by the looks of it. I am, although I've got to go get on an airplane soon. But we have this split arrangement. It works extremely well for a work-life balance. And I think that the way we've embraced technology, even though we got a bit of an overload last year, all that will rationalise out and balance out. So the ability for cloud solutions and improving systems so you can basically work from anywhere, I think is fantastic. And hopefully, Nigel, you've got control of the cough, mate. There's nothing worse, is there?
No, I knew I was gone. What I actually this was an interesting thing that actually was the downside of being totally remote was, and maybe this is my old school part of it, but you don't pick up on some of the verbal cues that you would in that if you see people face to face. And I found, so we actually worked on, we go back to the office 1 day a week. And that was, I call it more of a social day. I could actually say the productivity is lower on those days than it is when people work remote. But it's a good thing because we're human, we're social animals. So I think it's still an important part of it. So
I couldn't agree more. That getting together, and we're social animals, but that meeting, getting together in the office, I think is crucial to get the balance right. Because otherwise, and it happens in many other areas, that the pendulum swings too far the other way, and you lose that balance. Which, to me, in my philosophy, I operate in, you lose that harmonic in your life, and then nothing seems to go right. So I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
So just quickly on the other side of it is, I am so like Slack or I've got the Microsoft equivalent. Yeah, I think Teams, Microsoft Teams. Okay, those type of tools for async communication are really important, so that you can send messages to a group. You might send it to a team that might be just related to one particular project. As you probably, I don't know if you know, Peter, but we're actually using Slack while we're doing this project. It's allowing your team to actually talk directly to my team, so that you don't have to call every time. They can put what we call an async message in there, which might not get replied to straight away. It might not be important, but it's better that way than using all that time trying to call people all the time. So, and then having your resources online, I think that's the other important thing. And most of us do that these days with our documents and other things. So those are probably the three key things.
So tell me, where is the future going? If we said, what does 10, 20 years from now look like? Where do you think all this goes? I mean, do we wind up getting rid of the human being out of the system, or is technology real the grunt worker as such as we go forward? What are your thoughts?
AI is amazing. Like I've got friends that write software that is used in drones that fly beside the high tension lines, and they can, the drone goes around each insulator, and it can via AI on the spot go, yep, that one needs replacing. Yep, and then it goes to the next one, and it just does things like that. So instead of you got people trying to walk on these high tension lines, which is pretty crazy stuff anyway. This is doing that automatically. So AI in data. We wouldn't have had a COVID vaccination if it hadn't been for AI, because you're talking huge amounts of data, and they push this through, like to basically say, here's the result we want, here's all this data, compare them, and then give us the thing. And that's what they're using AI type technologies against to do. So I actually saw one example where they're using DNA streams, and the amount of data is it's immense that we're talking about. So and a normal processing of that just doesn't work. So that's our future in that sense. The other thing I'd say is, if you've got if you want a future thing like car parks, I reckon are going to don't invest in car parks in the city. You'd be hoping one day that you'd hope in the near future you'd have the ability that your car takes you into the city, you get out, and it goes out of the city somewhere and parks in a car park outside of the city and charges itself, and then come back and gets you when you want to leave work. Okay, maybe that's a thing. I don't know, but I'm just I'm putting silly things of like the whole city complex is going to change, and what happens in cities is going to change with the amount of people and who needs to go there and how you get there and get back. So
look, I agree with you on that. I think it'll be very interesting in the coming few decades as to what capital cities really look like
exactly
compared to where they are today.
Well, I took it.
Mate, look, we're out of time. Fascinating chatting.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to go into another tangent, but we were out of time. So.
Yeah, we've got the end of our time for you, but we will continue this conversation another time because it's fascinating. So hopefully that was of interest to people watching and enjoyed understanding a little bit more of what's happening with technology and how you can consider using it otherwise. Nigel from Two Red Kites, mate, thank you so much. We'll look forward to catching up with you again soon, and appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for this opportunity, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Stay safe.
And guys, just while I've got Peter and Nigel online still, guys, if anybody does have any questions today, please feel free to pop them down into the chat box and we can read them out live to Peter and Nigel. Alternatively, you can send them through to the events team at head office on events@fbaa.com.au, and we'll be able to read them out. But for the time being, guys, it doesn't seem like there has been a great deal that has been sent through. Nigel, I've only got one question for you, though, on the security of obviously using cloud tech. Is it the most secure system out there that people can use?
Look, there's always, like, you have to be worried if you're on Google that maybe Google use your data to work out other things. Now, you could imagine, what I could probably say is any tech that you have, I've always said a tech person controls the business. Don't think the CEO controls the business. If you've got a tech department, they control the business, okay? They have access to every document, everything in your whole system, okay? And they could look at anything, they could look at anyone's email, they can do all those things. So if they really wanted to, they could, okay? At least with when you've got it in the cloud, does someone really want to go look at your information? Maybe there is a Google, but they have lots of safeguards to prevent that. I actually have someone that writes software that actually does, that works with Zoom that will do the meetings, and he had to actually show his security protocols to show that no one internally could access any of the transcripts from any meeting and all the other processes from that. The other side of it is Google does actually have a feature that will allow a tech person to gain access to someone's email account, but it will notify and record that that's happened. Okay, so at least you've got some auditing there, and I think that's really important. Auditing is the most important thing, and I actually try to say to people, especially when we build systems for people, don't go too heavy. Security is a double-edged sword. It's a great thing, but it's a pain in the proverbial as well, okay? Because what happens if you have to get that order out, but you need to change it by 10, but the only person allowed to change that order is out at lunch or something else, okay? They're away that day. So it's much better having the concept of anyone can change it, but everything's recorded and audited and logged, okay? So if anyone comes back later and says, who changed this? They don't have to shout out in the room saying, hey, who changed this? It can be, Peter changed it. So, it's that type of concept. So security, I believe, is there. Use two-factor authentication if you can. It's really important. And don't do the Facebook, what was your favorite pet's name and all those type of things, which are trolling ways of trying to find details about you that they can use for your passwords. And don't use unauthenticated, unsecure wireless networks as well.
I think that's some really valuable advice that you've given to our members today that are on the call. So Nigel, again, as reiterating what Peter said, thank you very much for your time.
Sorry, just had to unmute myself. Thanks very much, Pete and Nigel, and Leah. You're very good at multitasking, being in two places at the same time. So thank you, Leah, as well. That brings us to a close for today, and we hope that you got a lot out of today's data and information provided, and I know that I did. I'd also just like to mention that myself, Leah, and the state councillors are available for all matters, all questions regarding the FBAA, and for any further assistance, please make sure that you get in touch with us via the FBAA website. Before we close off the Queensland eSummit, there are a quick few notes that I'd like to cover. We want to acknowledge our national sponsors again. Thank you so much for your time and the support that we receive. And you'll also get an email with the contact details, so they'll be in contact shortly. You'll be receiving the code for 1.5 CPD hours and a short survey in this to follow up. So please complete the survey. Your feedback's really valuable to us. Now, also, sorry, there's on the 15th of July at 11:30, we've got Pete White. We'll be hosting a session with Matt Rogers from RGB Lawyers. You can register via our FBAA website under the upcoming webinar. Now, I'm going to quickly hand back over to Leah because I know Leah loves talking about the conference. So, Leah, over to you.
I don't know if I love talking about it or if it's something that's part of what I get to give back to the industry. But guys, as you can notice, I definitely am not wearing the same clothes I was wearing in the video clip from Peter. And go the Blues on Sunday. I just want to reiterate that point. The gala dinner and conference, as we went through yesterday, for those that were with us, 30th of July down at SeaWorld, there are COVID safe plans in place, kids. We are going to put 800 to 1,000 people in the SeaWorld Conference Centre. We're going to head out to Movie World that evening for our Heroes and Villains dinner. It is optional fancy dress for those that want to attend. Keep in mind, guys, it is free for you to attend the national conference. It is $199 to attend the gala dinner, which is discounted from $380 because we love our members. Also, if you do want to register, now is the time to jump online and do it. Places are running out and we are capped for a capacity audience. Thank you to COVID rearing its lovely, ugly head again. So we can only accommodate 1,000 people and it will be the first 1,000 registered that will come through for the national conference. So it's a really quick update from my end of things. If you've got any questions regarding the conference, please email myself or the events team directly at events@fbaa.com.au. Christine, back to you.
Great, thank you, Leah. You do a great update on our conference for us. And just final, there's also another webinar recording on the FBAA YouTube channel that you can watch to grab CPD points and register for other up and coming webinars. So that brings us to a close. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we certainly look forward to seeing you at the national conference. Have a great day. Thanks.